Hey everybody, Kenta here with another crazy ass video that I'm going to be discussing today, or tonight, wherever you are in this massive globe. This one made my cringe meter freak out as it's from a YouTuber who believes that toxic masculinity, quotes, is a thing and is widely active today. I've heard of this guy before, and he's been aired on several of Anita's videos on Feminist Frequency. I remember seeing him from an old video on video games between men and women. The video was completely whack, and I debunked it once. Probably will re-upload a revised version here, as the old one was on my gaming channel, so it can't be monetized for shit. So this YouTuber's channel is called, as I quote, the Pop Culture Detective Agency. Something that just seems completely out there in my opinion. The man in this video is named Jonathan McIntosh. I can't say his last name for shit because I want to say Macintosh instead, but maybe that's how you say it, and but I'm no English major, so I don't know. So let's jump into their latest video called What is Toxic Masculinity?
During your travels around the internet, you may have bumped into the term toxic masculinity. It usually shows up in connection with particularly abusive male behavior, so things like harassment, homophobia, sexism, or violent outbursts.
Or I hear it from butthurt feminists who use the term to try and stop them from getting facts through their heads, but hey, who's calling the shots anymore, am I right?
But what does it really mean? Well, let's find out. Now, since there tends to be so much confusion and defensiveness surrounding these two words, I think we might need to start off with a really clear example.
Defending it how? Words are nothing more than letters. It's the meaning behind those words that are the real problem, especially when these two words are used to describe every male in the history of ever as if we're absolute monsters or even invaders of this planet or something.
You know, something that we can all agree on. Okay, yeah. But honestly, I think he needs his own video, so maybe something else we...
What do you think you're doing?
Okay, that's gonna work. This charming fellow is Biff from the Back to the Future series.
Oh boy, nice joke there with Drumpf in there. Can't wait to see what you drag out with him. But why did you go from an actual person to a character in a movie from the late 80s to early 90s? It's as if, dare I say, you can't find anyone else other than Drumpf who fits this toxin. And yeah, I know his last name is Trump, but hey, I've been watching fucking Last Week Tonight way too much, and Drumpf just sounds so much better than Trump. After all, Drumpf is his original last name, and he should be proud of his heritage.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Huh? Think, McFly, think!
Okay, so let's start with the word masculinity itself. Very broadly speaking, masculinity is a set of behaviors and practices that have traditionally been associated with men and manhood in our culture.
Masculinity isn't something that's normally associated with males. It's only associated with men. Again, no English major, but last time I checked, it only dealt with men. Femininity is the one that deals with females. This isn't anything new. Did you even take an English course in high school, middle school, or even elementary school on how words work? Like, I can't even English right now because of you.
And that includes both positive and negative things. Toxic masculinity, on the other hand, is a loose term that's used to refer to a subset of those behaviors which are harmful or destructive. It's often used as a sort of shorthand to describe behaviors linked to domination, humiliation, and control.
Or dare I say, it's used by feminists in an attempt to silence men of opposing views. I mean, shit.
It's marked by things like emotional detachment and hypercompetitiveness.
Look, Biff, somebody already asked me to the dance.
Who? That bug George McFly?
I'm going with Calvin Klein, okay?
Calvin Klein. No, it's not okay. You're going with me, understand?
Get your cooties off of me!
When are you gonna get it through your thick skull, Lorraine? You're my girl.
Oh boy, you're trying to use Biff from Back to the Future to represent all men, aren't you? Well, I got news for you. He's a villain. You're meant to dislike him for this behavior, and the screenwriters tried to reinforce this by showing you scenes in the movie to make you hate him more. That's the point of a villain. You're not supposed to like them at all. Everything about Biff is supposed to make your blood boil. You're supposed to hate him. He's literally supposed to, like, you could literally hold up a fucking sign at this point and say, I'm the villain of this movie. That's essentially what the writers are doing.
It's also connected to the sexual objectification of women as well as other predatory sexual behaviors.
What? Are you kidding? We're not beasts anymore. We're not cave dwellers anymore. What world are you living in where this is still a thing? We're not living in a society like this. Also, you're like, your link of it. It's also linked with the objectification of women. Needs a heavy citation needed, because I don't buy that for a second, and nor does anyone else with more than 6 brain cells. For crying out loud, you have no scientific base whatsoever. You have nothing whatsoever that supports this claim at all.
You know you want me to give it to you.
Shut your filthy mouth. I'm not that kind of girl.
Oh, well, maybe you are and you just don't know it yet.
It's also linked very closely with aggression, intimidation, and violence.
Again, citation needed. Seriously, where are you getting all your sources for all this? You're just like, all this. You just link to a video by MTV, which was just horrible. And an article from the Washington Post about Omar Martin, which is more of a religious problem, not a masculinity problem. I can't believe you twisted that around in order to strawman your favor. Like, that's pathetic, dude. And then another article from Susanna Weiss, who posts crazy articles of, as I quote, why concerned trolling is really just shaming, quotes that will make you proud to be a feminist, and my personal favorite, this poem reminds us rape culture is everywhere. And finally, a Wikia definition of toxic masculinity from Greek Feminism Wiki. I see what I mean by feminists love their definitions.
You want to take a poke at me?
Damn it, Biff.
The modifier toxic is used to highlight the fact that these kinds of behaviors carry with them some potentially serious and even deadly consequences. Much of this type of masculinity is relational.
Or it's just spewed from people who can't socialize properly in a debate and want safe spaces in every liberal arts college in the United States. And other places as well. Seriously, why do I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself a lot in this video?
And as such, it's mostly defined in opposition to anything culturally associated with women, which is why toxic masculinity is driven by this overwhelming fear of emasculation, that is to say, the fear of being perceived by others as feminine and therefore unmanly. Many of the most popular male heroes in movies are depicted as engaging in at least a few of these toxic behaviors.
Oh boy, here we go. Get your pants on over your head and wrap him in tinfoil time, because this is going to be a bumpy ride from here on out. I cannot believe this part. This is actually a section of the video where I literally had to pause the video and walk around for a little bit to unscramble my brain, because you thought that he's using an 80s movies was bad. Oh, this gets much worse, unfortunately. So, to my audience, put some tinfoil over your heads, because he's about ready to hit us with some very, very powerful stupid waves.
Yeah. Now let's both play.
But because they're the good guys, their actions are framed as admirable displays of strength, power, and manhood.
Dink, meet Felix Leiter.
Hello.
Felix, say hello to Dink.
Hi, Dink.
Dink, say goodbye to Felix. Man talk.
Oh, come on. Do I really have to sit through James Bond movies again? Damn it, my old man loves these movies. But he's using the old 1964 version of Goldfinger as if this is what is going on in society today, which, as every social experiment has ever shown since, like, fucking the internet, its invention on, has proven otherwise to be false. In fact, people are more on the offensive when it comes to a woman getting this kind of behavior towards her than it was a man. For crying out loud, you guys literally take these studies that are done and just throw them out the window, don't you? You just don't even acknowledge their existence, do you? Because, and what's worse is, once again, you're using a movie at a point in time where I do believe not even women were allowed to vote even during that time frame, and women were depicted as stupid. Like, that was like the whole thing of the 60s and on. Well, not really the 60s and on, excuse me. 60s to 70s is really where the point where all this is going on in the film industry. It's unbelievable that you're sitting here trying to say that something that happened in the 60s is still relevant today, as if it's still going on in today's society, which is completely false. Do you have any idea how time works? As much as I hate quoting atheism is unstoppable, are you aware of linear time? I'm not kidding. You seem to drag stuff from the past as if it's still happening today in the present. And he's right. Every feminist I've ever met, and even every SJW, I should say, in general, has sat here and dragged stuff from the past and tried to claim that it's still going on today, and it's still relevant today, and is still some kind of like oppression shit still going on today, when that is entirely false, and no scientific study whatsoever has ever supported any of their claims or any of their emotional feelings.
It's like Doc's
Yeah, I
always
know, I
saying.
know. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
And even when those behaviors are not celebrated, it's often framed as acceptable or normal and then excused as just guys being guys or boys being boys.
Okay, so you're telling me that no woman in the history of ever has peeped at a man, or another woman even. Bullshit. Fucking bullshit. Also, that glass house you're living in must be very nice.
Just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, I want to make something absolutely clear. This term is not a condemnation of men or manhood, because again, toxic masculinity only refers to a particular set of harmful actions and cultural practices, and none of those behaviors are inherent or biological traits of men.
Knock knock, science is calling you, and the English grammar. Hypercompetitiveness, first off, is 2 words, not 1. And it is also biologically accurate in not only humans, but in other mammals as well. Ever heard of the alpha male and packs of wolves, lions, and even snakes? Do you even know what competitive behavior even is? You can literally go to a zoo even with 2 males and 1 female, and you'll see the 2 males competing for the affection of the female. It is a biologically driven thing. It's how we've survived for the past millions of years, excuse me. And violence is just violence. There's nothing driving that force whatsoever. And aggression comes with a little chemical called testosterone. You know that chemical that your balls produce? Or did you neuter yourself when making this video, like how you put your pants over your head and wrapped it in tinfoil? Look, Bond's actions in Goldenfinger is stupid and not in any actual representation of today's modern world whatsoever. Are you familiar with how time works again? You're bringing up movies from the past and yelling, "See, look, that's how women are viewed today!" Which every person with even more brain cells than you apparently would realize that you're just trying to pull shit from the past and stir up what's already been sunk. Well, unfortunately, my friend, the battleships are armed this time, and we're not calling mercy shots on this one for you, buddy. We're gonna sink this little boat of yours once again. And another thing is, I love to point out, you pulled the same thing that Anita did. You disabled comments and you disabled ratings, which is just completely fucking typical of every person who lives in a closed-minded world and just wants like-minded people to just sit there and go and nod their empty fucking heads. Bra fucking brobo.
There's nothing toxic about just being a man, but some men do act in toxic ways. So in other words, toxic masculinity is not something that men are, rather, it's something that some men do.
And who defines what is toxic and what is acceptable? Who decides who's good and who's evil? this is literally the same thing that Christopher Hitchens said before his death back in 2011. Rest in peace, man.
Alright, so let's return to our friend Biff here. Now, Biff is an obvious buffoon. I mean, he's a schoolyard bully, he's like a cartoon villain. His actions are easy to spot and understand as damaging, because really, toxic masculinity is what defines him as a character.
No, that's how he's written. He's not meant to be liked, he's meant to be hated. He's the main villain in the entire Back to the Future franchise. Hell, they've even established that his entire family is psychologically messed up as well. For fuck's sakes, didn't you even watch these films whatsoever? They literally sit there and, like I said earlier, sit there with a fucking neon sign that says, "I'm the fucking bad guy of this movie, please hate me." Literally. You're trying to imply that Biff is an actual representation of men, which he is not. He's a representation of a cut-and-dry villain that you're supposed to hate. Just like in the Disney films.
You heard him, girls. Party's over.
At every point in Back to the Future, there might as well be a giant neon sign hanging over Biff's head that says, "Hey, this is the bad guy."
So you're acknowledging here that the writers portrayed him that way. You literally just shot yourself in the foot, because that's the fucking point of his character. That's literally the entire point of Biff. He's literally sitting there with a neon sign that says, "I'm the villain, hate me." Again, I have to sit here and repeat myself once again. This is a movie. Movies are not meant in any way, shape, or form to represent actual people or actual events in time. Unless, of course, it says, like, based on a true story. Then I could believe that there's some people out, like, I'm not going to deny, there are some people out there who act like Biff to the fucking teeth, unfortunately, in this world. But that's how life is, unfortunately. There's no fucking way we can control the behaviors of certain people. You can't teach people not to rape. You can't teach people not to be stupid.
So that's really easy. But things are rarely so clear-cut. In the real world, all kinds of men can participate in toxic masculinity, including seemingly normal guys who might also be nerdy or charming or witty or intelligent. Since toxic masculinity is a set of behaviors and not a biological trait, the real men who participate are not really one-dimensional character archetypes like Biff, and they usually don't do all of the things on the list.
So essentially what you're saying here is that even if a man is competitive because that's how we've survived as a species for literally millions of years, he's automatically a bad person. What you're saying here is so broad that you might as well reach to the extra inch that you have with those arms of yours and say, all men are evil, all men are stupid, all men are fucking crazy, all men are Biff, all men are sexist and crazy, which you pretty much have at this point in time in the video. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You're essentially saying that all men are evil, even if they somehow don't even if they barely nick this supposed list of yours of toxic masculinity, even if they come close to that, they're evil in your eyes.
Okay, well, sometimes they do, but usually that's not the case. There's a mistaken impression out there that toxic masculinity means that everything about masculinity is somehow toxic, but that is not the case. In fact, the term toxic masculinity is used very deliberately to try to differentiate the more damaging or destructive male behaviors from more positive male behaviors.
So here you've shot yourself in your other foot and stated that it's an overused term and devalued it in its meaning, and it's so vague that we might as well not even use it. Dude, your claim is falling apart without me being involved in it. I could literally just sit here and leave my comments open and just make another channel that's like your review archives or whatever, and just let your video play. And I wouldn't even have to sit here and do nothing. I could just literally sit back, relax, and just watch as your video collapses under its own foundation. Well, even then, it's a weak foundation.
When it comes to this term, it's really important to understand that it's used to reinforce the fact that there are many different types and formulations of masculinity, or as R.W. Connell puts it, different masculinities. And since there are many ways to practice masculinity, we as men can choose not to engage in the more toxic behaviors and instead choose to pursue more positive, empathetic, and cooperative forms of masculinity.
In other words, don't try to be what you biologically are. Fight the power! This was the end point for the video because the last like 22 seconds are him promoting his Patreon and such. So I left that edited out because, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to support this guy in any way, shape, or form or anything that he does on this channel. His original video is in the description though, in compliance with fair use, and is still linked to his channel, so you're free to check it out there without my commentary. But be warned, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse as you watch it. I literally not only had to spend a week away from watching this to unscramble my brain as to how a guy can sit here and call all men evil but can't even see that he is, in fact, a man and all. That, and plus I've returned to college, so it's been a bit, it's been a bit hard to get videos here, and it'll be a bit longer in between videos. I might be late on certain parties like this one here in the future as well. I couldn't comment on everything with a sane tone of voice when I was first editing this, so I left a lot out. Plus, with this video being as long as it is right now, I don't really want to sit there and have to repeat myself over and over again like I did with my last video. And I don't get how guys can sit there and just say that this is a thing when rape, violence, and other things since the 80s has declined heavily. Honestly, I don't know what else I can possibly add to this that others have possibly done so already. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.